Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 7 of the Odd Sports Topics podcast. I am Michael Rachel, always joined by PJ Ellis. We have a new member with us today. His name is Matt Costa. He is new, and he has been writing articles for us. PJ, you want to – or Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself. PJ doesn't have to introduce you.
I am Matt. I am a student at Maryville University studying sports business management. I also studied at Mizzou for a little bit. I studied journalism before deciding that I wanted to be a sports business major. I have worked before with the St. Louis Battlehawks in their brief time in the XFL. And I'm just excited for the opportunity to write with these guys and be a part of the Odd Sports Topics crew.
Yeah, we're excited to have another St. Louis guy on the thing. He can gang up with me on St. Louis versus Milwaukee debates. So you're outnumbered now, Michael. Sorry about that.
That introduction, Matt, was like first day of school vibes. It was like,
Matt, give us an icebreaker. Tell me your favorite dessert. Come on,
No.
We need an icebreaker.
Favorite dessert. I love cheesecake. Gotta be favorite dessert.
Classic.
All right, so everyone here, please go follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Odd Sports Topics, and then oddsportstopics.com, where you can see all of our articles. We had a recent article on the Baltimore Ravens and how Edgar Allan Poe, the famous poet, was the inspiration behind their name. And then we just released one on Thursday about sports cards. So go check that one out.
Chicago Bears. We had the Chicago Bears one too after that. So the Chicago Bears and how they got their name.
Go Bears.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's get it out of the way. Obviously, me and Michael, I feel like we've been very vocal about our sports teams. Costa's a huge Bears fan. Other than that, I think you're a pretty St. Louis guy, right? Cardinals, Blues,
Kansas Jayhawks basketball, and Chicago Bears football.
It's really weird because we went to Mizzou. But anyways, we move forward.
Yes.
Yeah, check out our article on the Chicago Bears, why they got their team name and how the Bears, obviously there's not a lot of Bears roaming around the cities, streets of Chicago. So give that a read to figure out why they're called the Bears.
This episode, which is why most of you are watching right now, is because of the interview with the absolute legend of Chellsie Memmel. Living legend. I don't know. Is legend kind of yeah, we're going to say living legend just to make it sound better. But before we do that, we had an interview with Adam Long, professional PGA Tour player, a couple of weeks ago. And he, at the time of this recording, he is 2 under through 11 holes, tied for 8th at the U.S. Open. So obviously this is being released on a Monday. So hopefully he had a good showing, this weekend. All right, so let's get into our special guest, really cool guest, former U.S. Olympic gymnast, Chellsie Memmel. We're going to go through a little bit of her bio. It's a detailed, you could go on for days with her bio, but we're going to try to limit it to a little bit just for time's sake. Her Wikipedia page goes over it really well, so go check it out there. But basically, she grew up in Wisconsin, lives in Wisconsin right now, is a member of the M&M Gymnastics club in New Berlin, Wisconsin. So for all you gymnasts out there, go check out M&M Gymnastics. And Chellsie has a ton of medals and accomplishments. So I'm not going to list them all just because, I'm not trying to have a 2-hour podcast, but she's got so many golds, and the ones that are most impressive are the World Championships and Olympics, World Cup finals. She's got 3 golds at the World Championships, one in 2003 as a member of the team, 2003 in the uneven bars, and 2005 in the all-around. 2008, she competed with Team USA at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and as a part of the team, she did the uneven bars routine and helped contribute to that silver medal that they brought home for the United States. So yeah, if you go, she's gotten medals from Pan American Games, Pan American Championships, Pacific Rim Championships. It's a detailed list of accomplishments that she has on her Wikipedia page. And she's now 32 years old, and we'll get into this in the podcast when we ask her about it. But she is a mother of 2 now, and she is attempting a comeback in the gymnastics world, which is very cool. We get to talk about it, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. But first, PJ, we didn't ask her this because, kind of slipped my mind, but do you think she would be able to repeat all of her medals that she has won from memory? Or do you because with that many, I don't know if it's even possible to remember all those.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously she'd get the big ones, I would imagine, but she's very decorated. Obviously, I think you said the 7th most decorated gymnast of all time. So, I mean, she's behind names only like Nastia Liukin, Shawn Johnson, Allie Raisman, Simone Biles. Like she's up there with these greats. That I don't know if she'd be able to name every single thing she's won. I mean, it's incredible what she's done with her career. We're excited to make her comeback. See her make a comeback too.
Yep, for sure. And that'll be in the interview. We're about to get to it, but real quick, we're going to give you guys a couple of takeaways that we really thought were cool. Matt, what was one takeaway that you took away from the interview?
Like you said, Mike, I really thought it was awesome how she's 32 years old, she has 2 kids, and she's making an Olympic comeback. I think that's inspiring. It really shows you that if you put your mind to anything, you can go out there and do it. I really liked that about her.
Absolutely. PJ?
Overall, it was just honestly, it was really cool just to sit down with an Olympic athlete. Obviously, that's the top athletes that America has to offer. So be able to sit down with one who's been such accomplished as her, it's just really cool in general, just to speak in her presence and what it takes to get to that level, the dedication, the training it goes through. It's just you're a different breed, honestly. Just to sit down and talk with her and get a little bit a look into her mindset of what she does to train and compete to get ready to go to that next level it was really cool.
The thing for me was when she said she was competing in the 2008 Olympics, it was business as usual for her, and she couldn't really enjoy being, in the Olympics and all the events that go on. And she said she got to see one event and it was in between training, and she basically had to run over there with her dad because her dad was like, no, we're doing this. We're at the Olympics. We're seeing an event. And that's kind of crazy to think about how, we see this Olympics as like this coming together of all these countries to compete. But like in reality, these are competitors trying to bring home gold medals for their country and represent their country to the best of their abilities. And they don't get to enjoy, what we as fans get to enjoy with all of those sports going on. So that was my biggest takeaway. One thing, go check her out on Instagram, Chellsie Memmel. Type that in Instagram, you'll find her. And her video series on YouTube is hilarious. She every week she puts out like a video. It's like a vlog, kind of cool, almost like an The Office kind of style, where it's like these cuts and takes. It's kind of cool. And her dad is hilarious on there. His mannerisms and his like 3-word comments they're really funny. So go check that out. And then we're going to get into the interview here. But last thing before we do, I have to throw out a disclaimer. Halfway through this interview, I just like disappear from the screen because the sun in my room, I don't know why. I've never had this issue, but the sun just beamed on my face, and for some reason it just decided to like make me go away. So when you hear me but don't see anything, I'm there. So just like picture it. All right. So yeah, that's it. Hope you guys really enjoyed this interview. Please share it with any gymnastics fans that you know of or fans of Chellsie Memmel back in the day. So I hope you guys all enjoy. Here is our interview with former Olympic gymnast Chellsie Memmel. Now welcome on to the Odd Sports Topics podcast, a former gymnastics legend representing both herself and the United States of America, the 7th most decorated American gymnast of all time, Chellsie Memmel. Chellsie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, Chellsie, we're really excited to have you on the podcast today. I just want to start off basically, so both your parents, obviously, they got you into gymnastics. Both of them were coaches. How big of an influence were your parents in getting you into the world of gymnastics and coaching you through that in your early stages of your career?
It was huge, just because being gymnasts themselves, then coaches, and then opening up their own club. And it's where I grew up. I was in the gym. That's where so many of my memories from my childhood are me in the gym with them. They did put me in other sports, and it was never forced, like, you will do gymnastics, but it was where we were, where they were, and it was where I wanted to be.
When did it become you actually wanting to be a gymnast and not just your parents forcing you to do it?
I really think I did just want to be in the gym, and I wanted to be, like, I loved that they were in the gym too, and just we were there as a family, and I think that part of it for me was really cool. A lot of times, like I said, a lot of early memories are just not wanting to leave the gym because it was just such a fun, essentially, playground for me. But it got more serious when I was 7, when they made the decision to move me to another club that had an elite program.
Nice. What was your favorite thing about gymnastics growing up?
It was fun. It was fun to flip. one of my favorite things is a trampoline, because it's like playtime. So when I was younger, it was just a fun thing to do. But then obviously it got more serious, but I just remember the flipping and the learning new things. It was so cool.
So I want to get into a little bit about your career itself, and then later we'll get into some general questions. We actually had some gymnasts right now give us some questions that they're curious to hear from you. But let's go back to 2003, kind of where your
Mm-hmm.
career really took off.
Yeah.
And all of us tell ourselves to believe in ourselves, but in 2003, you were really put to the test because, I mean, obviously you got the honor of being selected to compete in the Pan American Games, but you were left
Mm-hmm.
off the team at the World Championships, which was 1 week later. And then you won the gold in the all around and on the uneven bars at the Pan American Games. And then that next week for Worlds, there were some injuries to the gymnasts for
Mm-hmm.
Team USA, and they brought you in as an alternative. But then shortly after, you were put into the rotation. But
Yep.
not just put in the rotation. I mean, you were not just like this normal fill-in person. You led the United States in the all-around score and led the United States to the first ever gold medal for the United States in World Championship history, which is just an amazing story. So I just want you to quickly take us through like that emotion of those 2 weeks and what lessons you learned, from not originally being put on that team to being basically the most valuable gymnast at World Championships.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've had a lot of time to kind of reflect on that lately, because I've, gotten a lot of questions, and just like I've been very reflective of my career. But yeah, it started out with a really bad championships and not doing really well at all, and making the Pan American team. And I was upset. I was gunning for the world team, and I didn't make it. And my parents were like, it's okay. It's okay to be upset, but let's treat this Pan Am Games like it's your worlds. And that's what I did. So they were really helpful to help me kind of be like, okay, this is what happens, but go out there and compete the best you can. And that's what I did. So it was really great to refocus like that, and just like then be really excited about going to the Pan American Games, and doing really well down there. And then, yes, getting the call to be like, okay, we need you to be alternate for the world team. And I flew directly from the Dominican Republic to Houston for the prep camp for Worlds. And then we flew out to Anaheim, and everything happened so quickly that I even just during that time, I didn't really have a time to stop and think like, oh my gosh, like I'm on the world team. This is crazy. It happened so fast, and everything was snowballing. And it was just like, and then I was competing. The worst thing is to see a teammate go down with injuries, because you never want to see that. You don't want that to happen. And I unfortunately saw both of them like in person, ACL, Achilles, and it sucks. But again, like I said, there was not a lot of time to really stop and be like, or feel like the enormity of the situation. It was just like, go, 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 go. Yeah, it was crazy.
That I can imagine that kind of just being flung into it, how exciting that was, especially after the success you had. And then you move forward and you go to 2005. And for an odd thing for us who aren't as familiar with the gymnastics world, like I play basketball, obviously the scoring system is, you compete against another person directly. So you ended up winning the all-around gold medal in 2005 World Championships by 0.001% over Nastia Liukin. And then at a year later, a different competition, you guys tied. Can you pinpoint what led to that 0.001 point score difference, and what kind of goes into the scoring subjectiveness of that?
Right. So 2005, we were still under just the 10-0 scoring system. So the max you could get no matter what was a 10.0. Our routines, like the difficulty, I think we started at an 8.8, and then you just kind of built up with bonus points to get to the 10. So me and Nastia were pretty much both there. Definitely on bars, beam, and floor. So then it just came to how well we did those routines, and we were so evened out pretty much, which is crazy. And it's just because we're such different people and different gymnasts and have very different styles of gymnastics. And to be that close to me is still, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when I see like gymnastics scoring, like I'm just looking and I'm like, all right, I have no idea what this is about to be, but hopefully we get it done. So to
Yes.
see like 1/1000th of a point separate first and second is just insane to me. Um,
Yeah.
do you tactically decide how difficult you want your routine to be? You know, bigger
Mhm.
picture here, like throughout your whole career,
Yeah.
did you specifically do difficult routines in harder competitions, or how do you go about selecting your rate of difficulty?
Yeah, it's a process of, because actually I'm doing it right now. But yeah, it's just a process of seeing how well you can do the most difficult things, because you don't want to just go out there and throw all the skills and just be really messy or have a much greater chance of falling or just not even being able to do them successfully. Um, you might be able to hear my dogs in the background. um, so yes, it's always kind of a puzzle putting the routines together. And with this newer, because it changed in '06, so open-ended scoring system where you just completely build your difficulty, and then the execution is still from a 10. But yes, it's very much trying to weigh like the benefits of doing the more difficult skills, or doing like a super clean routine. And a lot of times you're not going to change your routines like leading up to this competition or that. Sometimes you might make it a little bit simpler if you're just starting to compete again or getting into it. But you're always really just trying to practice and perfect that routine so you're comfortable doing it when you're at a competition.
So after you finish your routine in a competition, can you sort of predict like a ballpark of what your score might be?
Sometimes, um, sometimes you can. It's a little bit harder now just with the scoring, with the open-ended scoring system. You can kind of more with like the execution score too. I mean, you could put it together, but before it was like, oh well, that was like an 8-8 routine when everything was from a 10. But it's a little bit different now.
Is the difference in scoring, you said the system kind of changed a little bit. Is that better now than it used to be, or did you like the old format better? And what did they change?
So it so up until 2005, the maximum you could possibly score was a 10.0. And now there really is no, you build your routines. For the women, you have the 8 highest difficulty valued skills that you count, and with certain things. So like floor, you have to count a minimum of 3 dance elements and a minimum of 3 acro elements, and then the 2 other are whatever the other highest ones you have. And then there's connection bonus, there's values like with that. So that's kind of how you build your base D score, the difficulty score, and that is added to the execution score, which is still from a 10. So there's essentially two different sets of judges, ones that just calculate the D score, and then the execution that's from the 10, and then you add those two together and that's your final score. So I mean, there is a maximum, but everyone's is different. Like if you have a 6.2 difficulty on bars, the highest you could possibly get is the 16.2.
While we're on the scoring subject, so obviously you're making your comeback, and we're going to get into that in a little bit here. But I saw that you were also a judge, and you kind of went around the country to be a judge. How has being a judge helped you in your comeback here that you didn't have when you were first going into gymnastics?
I think it helps a lot because I just have a much more thorough understanding of the code and what the judges are looking for, and just things like that. I mean, before I was critical of my gymnastics, but now it's even more. And one of the cool things about technology is we film a lot, and then I can come see and look at it immediately, um, and just being able to critique it together with my dad, who is my coach, and just be like, okay, this is like what needs to be fixed. And it just also helps with the routine construction, because like what it's just easier because if to see what makes sense and what doesn't.
So now going to 2008, the Olympics at Beijing, obviously what most of the people watching this probably remember you for. Um, Later afterwards, it was like released that you competed on a broken ankle, I believe, broken foot, broken ankle.
Yeah.
But you didn't release that to how serious the injury was. Everyone knew you had like a little bit of an
Yeah.
injury to the ankle that you had in
Right.
the prelims, but you still contributed on the uneven bars, and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately you left Beijing with a team silver medal, which is pretty cool. But gymnastics is put on the global stage, obviously, during the Olympics. And when it's not on the Olympics, not as many people pay attention in the United States to when it is the Olympics.
Right.
So obviously being the biggest stage, and you only competed in one event. So what did you have to tell yourself to make sure that you came through for your team? Because, you don't have the next event to bounce back where other Nastia Liukin did. So, how did you get through that? 'Cause I watched it back and I saw that you were breathing pretty heavily before you went on there. But yeah, what were the emotions going through your head during the Olympics?
Yeah, it was just being there and competing. It was very nerve-wracking because, like you said, I could only contribute on uneven bars, and I wanted to be able to do so much more. And it's a lot harder to just go in and compete one event, because it's all you have. And when I was doing all around leading up to all of these competitions, I don't have a lot of practice of ever just competing one event. So it's trying to kind of stay busy, help the team, because I was helping set the board sometimes for vault, and it was trying to stay out of my head and just get so nervous for bars, because that's all I knew I could do. And I did, and I let it get to me the first day in prelims because I fell. So then I felt even like that extra pressure of not wanting to make that mistake again in team finals, because that was all I could do. So it was just trying to, yes, stay busy with other things, trying to be a good teammate and just cheer everybody on, and then being able to just try to focus on bars. So that part of it was really difficult.
So the famous walk during the Olympic opening ceremony, could you describe what it was like to walk next to some of the greatest American athletes in the world while knowing that you are also one of the greatest American athletes in the world?
You know what? I wish I could tell you, but we didn't get to walk in opening ceremonies. No, we were not allowed to walk in opening ceremonies because our events started soon after, and they didn't want us standing around for that long. But it is an amazing thing to be in the village and to be a part of something like that, knowing that, you are one of the top athletes in your sport in the world. And that's the coolest thing for me about the Olympics, is because gymnastics competitions are usually just gymnastics, and to see so many different people and sports and different body types, because everybody was different, to see so many people represented was so cool.
That is a little unfortunate that you can't, walk. Go ahead, PJ. I see you have a question.
Yeah, no, just real quick. So I know obviously you're there for a job and you're there to do your job. But how much of the Olympics was also just kind of taking in and enjoying it, like say, hey, I'm going to go watch, other Americans compete in different events and just kind of be like, wow, I'm at the Olympics right now? Or was it mostly just like, hey, I'm here for business, I am locked in?
It was here for business. My dad is awesome. He was able to get tickets for one of the events. It was actually the steeplechase. It was the only thing that was going on, and he was like, all right, we're going. We pretty much ran in between the training to go and watch this event. But that's one of the memories that I have that stands out to me, because that was cool to see another Olympic event live in person. But yeah, went to see the race and then booked it back to meet the team for dinner. So it was just like, but he's like, no, we're doing this. We're here. We got to see something.
That's hilarious. Wow. I can imagine, like, you want to go see all of these different sports, but you just can't, because
Yeah.
it's such a high pressured, high intensity thing you're doing. But I heard on a different podcast that you met Michael Phelps.
Yep.
What, if you don't mind sharing what that conversation was about and how that came to be?
Not a huge conversation. It was just, we were, I don't remember if we were going out of the cafeteria, he was headed in, but it was just, he was already great then. And it was just really cool to meet him. And again, you just admire the work and the effort that they put in, because you know how hard you work to get there. And it was just a level of respect meeting all of these other athletes. But that one absolutely sticks out. We got to meet some of the basketball team. It was also really cool because at the time Andrew Bogut was on the Bucks, and he was there with was it the Australian team? So that
Yeah,
was
Team
really cool
Australia. Yep.
to meet him and just see him in his Australian gear. And then I remember like Nastia met Dirk Nowitzki because he was with his other team. So that part of it was really cool as well.
That's awesome. Obviously, you lived the dream of so many young kids in America competing in the Olympics for yourself, your teammates, but also just for your country. What's one piece of advice that you would tell young Chellsie, as she has that dream of competing in the Olympics one day?
Just to keep working. And then one of the things that I've been learning so much more now is the value of conditioning and like preparation like that way. And I took it somewhat seriously before, but now it's on a whole nother level of just really appreciating, like I said, appreciating the value that it has in how I feel in training and how it directly affects what I'm able to do, instead of just doing it to do it because I think I have to. And now I do it because I enjoy it and I know the direct effect that it has. That would probably be the one thing.
Getting into your comeback a little bit, obviously 32 years old is still very young in the grand scheme of life. But in gymnastics, we usually see Olympic gymnasts in their late teens and early 20s. So you as a mother of two are doing something which is both unique and inspiring. What made you decide to make a comeback and try to make the next Olympic team?
It was a lot of things went into it. It started out as just wanting to get in shape after I had my kids, and it started with little conditioning competitions, and dubbed them Chellsie challenges, and I looked forward to doing them each week, and I wanted to get stronger. I wanted to beat the kids who are half my age easier instead of trying to struggle. So it was just kind of a snowball effect that way. And then once I got into better shape, I was like, I should just try flipping again and see how it feels. And it was really good, and it was really fun, and I was enjoying it. And I still wasn't doing a lot. Like, I wasn't serious about coming back until I announced it, pretty much. But then once the pandemic hit and everything shut down, we were going into the gym way more than I was. I was doing just more physical exercise because I was leading a ton of Zoom workouts. And the gym was just, it was empty. I was like, is this just big, huge gymnastics facility and there's nobody doing gymnastics? And I was just like, well, I can. So I started doing it more and seeing how my body would respond and how it would feel, keeping the numbers low, doing this and that. And then I started, it's like, okay, now I'm going into the gym with doing gymnastics in mind, or making these little goals or whatever. And it just kept going, and I kept enjoying it and still having fun, and my body was okay with it. And like, yeah, it just kept going. And I, even at the beginning of March, April, May, even June, I didn't think I was even going to try to compete again, but I kept hitting these little goals I was setting for myself without even realizing it, that I was setting these goals. And then it was just like, okay, what's stopping me? Me. I was.
Obviously, like he said, inspiring. So obviously during this, you said you started in March, obviously. That's kind of the start of the global pandemic that hit the world. So how has that affected your training, given the Olympics have been pushed back?
It affected it completely. It's pretty much the only reason I'm doing this, because had the Olympics been this year, I wouldn't have been ready. There's not even a chance. So it affected it completely, because it gave me the opportunity to just do gymnastics. And the other part of it was feeling so much was out of my control. I so much with everything that was happening in the world. When I was doing gymnastics, that was the one thing that I felt like I could, focus on and have some control over. And that just made me feel a little bit better, and it made everything a little bit more manageable. Like I was happier. I was a much better mom for it because I felt like I had some little handle on something instead of just being like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
So I don't even know if you can see me anymore because the sun is directly in my face and like the shadow.
Got some nice mood lighting.
Yeah, well, I'm still here. I'm still here. So, I this question is kind of I feel like this is a kind of like a bad question in a way, just because like you can't, like, there's success comes in so many ways, and
Mhm.
you know, you don't have to necessarily make the Olympic team for this comeback to be a success for you. So, I mean, answer this kind of how you want, but what would you like to happen in order for this comeback to be a success in your eyes?
What I kind of already feel like it's a success because of what I'm able to be doing right now. My body feels really good. I am making progress on a completely different schedule than I have ever done before. Like, I'm still only doing gymnastics 3 days a week and then conditioning on those opposite. I'm conditioned all of the days, but I do heavy conditioning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and gymnastics Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is pretty much completely unheard of. And I know it's different because I'm older, my body is different, but for me to know that I'm still making huge strides and making progress, with keeping the low numbers and only doing that amount of gymnastics, like really only, I think being in the gym around 15 hours is pretty crazy. Um, so I feel like that part of it is a huge success. And the other part that I'm continuing to be more aware of is the amount of people I've been able to inspire. And that piece of it is the coolest part, to know that I've had like a direct impact on someone else's life. To, you know, I've had people reach out that they're started exercising again, that they have tried, you know, they took their first gymnastics class, or they went back to a sport that they love doing, and they're like, you know, why did I stop, or this or that, or just taking the time for themselves to do something like that. That is like winning to me.
And another thing to just go off of that, your video series that you do on YouTube, I mean, you are what, at least 8 years removed from the sport of like of competing in gymnastics, and these videos are getting like over 50,000 views. So it shows just like how many people are taking interest to what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing. And I actually did watch one of them yesterday, and your dad's hilarious. Like he doesn't even have to say anything. He could just stand there, and like his
Right.
mannerisms are so funny. So shout out to your dad for that one for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's fantastic. It's so much fun being able to work with him like this again, because I mean, obviously we're a very close family, but to be able to have him as part of this journey again is awesome.
Obviously, it's in this time too when there's a lot of negative news in the just overall. It's so good to hear an inspiring story and somebody they can look to and see somebody who's doing something so positive in a time of such little hope, it feels like, in the world sometimes, to have this hope and to look at you as something, hey, she can do it. Anybody can live out what they're trying to do and achieve their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
When you announced this comeback, obviously you said the seed has been planted. Is there a special meaning why you use those words?
Not really. It was just because I was hearing it from so many people, like, are you going to come back? Are you going to compete again? From my family, they're like, you can do this. Like, you're doing it. You're just not admitting that you're doing it. And I felt like it was the video that I did, the skill that I posted was my beam dismount. And that was, again, one of those little hurdles that I put for myself. Like, well, if I can do this, maybe I can keep going, or maybe I do have a shot at doing it again. And I made it very easily. And then I was like, oh, crap. Like, what? Like, again, it was just kind of admitting to myself, because I had been hearing those comments for a year when I just started playing gymnastics and barely doing anything and just doing stuff on the floor. And it was just like, it felt like it just finally like rooted itself into my brain. Like that seed was planted that, okay, I could maybe do this.
So we know you have a lot of hardware. You're the 7th most decorated U.S. gymnast. But what competition or medal are you most proud of, and why?
there's a couple, like one would be the team gold medal from 2003 Worlds, just with everything the team had gone through. We ended up competing with only 5 people to choose from instead of 6 during team finals. So be able to come together to compete for the girls who couldn't and win a world medal, or the gold medal at a world championships for the first time ever for the US. That one sticks out hugely. The other one would be, Worlds in 2005, winning that medal, because that was one of really the first times I had ever set a goal of winning a competition. I don't usually fully say those words as like going out wanting to do the best that I can, but that was one of the first times it was like, I want to win a world gold medal.
Well, that is
All right.
awesome that you went out there and did that then.
So this next topic, I guess I'm bringing up, is it's more of like a me wanting to see your reaction to this. So I've talked about this with my friend Caroline, who's good friends with your sister Sky.
Yes.
But there isn't this professional league in gymnastics, once these gymnasts, because you guys retire so young, it seems like 23,
Yes.
24. And I
Yes.
obviously you're showing right now that you can still compete at your age. So ESPN has gotten deals with like SEC Gymnastics, and the Worlds has been on ABC at times. Do you think there would be a market for potentially having a professional gymnastics league in the United States that maybe travels from city to city with teams made up of like 4 or 5 people? Has that been a thing that's been discussed before or happened before? Or what do you think about that idea?
I've heard a lot of people kind of discussing that or wondering if it would be a possibility. I took part in an event that was like that, where it was just kind of skill for skill battle back and forth. That was back in 2013, and it did fairly well. I would love that. I think that would be amazing, because there's really not that many avenues aside from Cirque, which is up in the air right now just because of what is happening in the world. But that's really pretty much where you can take some of your gymnastics abilities is to performance is Cirque. But it would be really cool to figure out some kind of league, and I think that would be amazing, and I think that there would be interest in it. But yeah, it's finding the right way to market it and to be able to pay the athletes and get them, just like the physical care that they need. So there's a lot of variables and hurdles, but I do think it's something that could be figured out.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting too, obviously, because a lot of these gymnasts compete at the Olympics, and they have a lot of brand value, and they come back with a lot of recognition, and then you retire so young. It's kind of sad that we don't get to follow you through the later stages of your career. It'd be interesting to follow that through. So we here at Odd Sports Topics, we explore the odd things that happen in sports that often are normal. Obviously, you've competed at the highest stages of your sport, so I'm sure you have an odd thing that has happened to you throughout your judging days, your coaching, your competing, in any 3 of those aspects. What's an odd thing that's happened to you throughout your career?
Oh gosh. I mean, I still think one of the odds things is winning a world championships by 001. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous to me. But that one sticks out to me the most.
Winning by 0.001 is definitely an odd thing that's happened to you.
So just want to close with some, I don't know what to call this, man, like some not so rapid fire, if that makes sense. So like just, your initial thoughts to these. We've had some people that have some questions for you that are currently in the gymnastics world. So the first one is, how did you handle nerves when competing on such big international stages?
That was, for me, I did a lot of like mental training and visualization going through my routine, so that I always had a kind of a routine of what I did. Like before I bed, I would visualize the entire competition start to finish of how I wanted it to go. And then when I started getting nervous, like leading up to it in that day, that was like my fallback of just visualizing the perfect routine. And that was hard, and that takes practice, because sometimes you can't just like do it. Like you do have to work on it and figure out the best way to do it? Are you seeing it? Are you watching yourself? Are you visualizing it at, like, as your skill and what you're seeing doing your skill? So for me, that was huge, because once I got nervous, that was just like my fallback. And then just remembering all of the work and the numbers that I put into it and being confident in my preparation.
I can imagine getting yourself in the right mental state to compete on the world's level is a very difficult thing to do. But what has been the hardest skill or event for you to get back since your comeback?
The one that's taken the most and we're taking our most time with is bars. Just with past issues with my shoulders, I just want to be as confident as I can. Um, I'm still progressing, but that's been the one that I've been most reluctant to train. And now I'm into it. I'm not reluctant anymore, but we're just still taking it a lot slower.
Is it intimidating knowing your competition is so much younger than you, and then gymnastics terms speaking?
Some, but it's fine. I'm fine. They are younger. They can do their number, they can do more numbers in this way and that, but I have so much experience. It's just, I think it evens out.
So with that experience, with your maturity that you didn't have, growing up and competing at the highest levels, what one thing have you taken away most from your maturity that you didn't have when you were younger?
It's, I feel like before I felt like I could focus very well, but I feel like it's just a whole new level of it. And a whole new level of just being aware of my body and being able to zone in on quality over quantity. Just like, I know I am doing 3 skills and I want all 3 of those to be amazing, instead of just being like, oh, well, this one was off, that one was a little off, I can do more until I get there. It's like, no, I'm only doing this many. I want them all to be good. So just, and that part of it is huge. And being a little bit more confident, just in myself and in my body's capabilities, because I'm stronger now, which is the coolest thing ever. And that just comes back to that appreciation of working out and conditioning.
And then last question here is just what you're up to, like, as far as, your video series and obviously like that. Where can people stay in touch with you as they try to watch you on your comeback?
Yes, they can find me. Well, YouTube is where we kind of document a lot, upload weekly training videos, which has been really cool. I've never been this like open and sharing before, but I feel like this is such a bonus round, and I want to share this journey with everybody to show like what we're capable of doing, even if other people might think we're too old or don't need to be doing gymnastics or sports or anything like that, but like to show that it's possible and to show what is possible. But yeah, YouTube, Instagram is at cmemmel23, Twitter at cmemmel, but all of that I try to just post as much as I can.
One last thing before we go is you obviously were brought up in the gym, and now I see that your kids are also kind of in that similar environment that you are. Do you see a similar kind of track mate possibly to where you were as a child?
Who knows? We'll see. All I know is that they both love it right now, and they will both try multiple other sports. And if it's something that they want to do, that's awesome. And if it's something they don't want to do, that's awesome too. I just can't wait to see their gymnastics journey, where it takes them.
All right. Well, Chellsie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We are rooting for you on your comeback, and we'll be tuning into those video series as well, just mostly to see your dad just crack me up every time. But no. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Chellsie.
Big thanks to Chellsie Memmel for coming on to the Odd Sports Topics podcast to talk about her early career, her comeback, and much, much more. We hope you really enjoyed the interview that we had with her. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe so that you can get the other episodes that we have. And please share this episode with any gymnastics fans that you guys know, any fans of Chellsie Memmel, or anybody that just, likes sports. And please check us out on oddsportstopics.com, where you can see all of our articles that relate to odd things that occur in sports. Again, big thanks to Chellsie. Really appreciate it. And for Matt Costa, PJ Ellis, and myself, Michael Rachel, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Until next time, goodbye.